Alrighty, we are going to get started. All right, so we're talking about ethics today, right and wrong, which should be simple, but it ain't. Not simple at all. And we're going to talk about that. There is actually, I got to go ahead and shout it out. There is a fantastic show called The Good Place. It does have some adult aspects to it. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what it's rated. You'll have to look that up. But it deals a lot with ethics, and I actually learned a lot from that TV show. That's not where I pulled this information from, but I do recommend it. Again, it's a little, there's some parts that are, a little bit older, content, but it's something that one day maybe you should go watch. So let's talk ethics. What are ethics? What is that? Well, ethics are the moral principles that guide people's decisions. Okay. So, it's like, oh, and always let your conscience be your guide, which is, Jiminy Cricket is Pinocchio's conscience and Disney, and it's supposed to help him make decisions. Well, your moral code, the thing that you live by, what guides your decisions, is something that you have, or maybe you don't. And there are a lot of things that influence our moral code, like our compass inside us that says this feels right to me, this does not feel right to me. I agree with this, I disagree with this. I feel comfortable with this, I do not feel comfortable with this. This on a global scale, I support. This I don't support. What are some principles that people uphold? These are not my ethics necessarily. These are just examples, okay? So I'm not telling you this is what you should adhere to. This is just me sharing with you what examples are of them, all right? So someone's moral principle could be always tell the truth, and that could guide them in a lot of decisions. If that's your big principle, is like, I need to be an honest person. I strive for honesty. I need to always tell the truth. That's going to guide a lot of decisions that you make. Another one could be everyone should be treated fairly. That could be something that you hold as a principle, and that's going to help guide your decisions. And that's going to affect a lot of different scenarios you're going to be presented with. Well, that doesn't seem fair because that person has to do this, or I got to do this and they didn't. You'll see that that shows up in a lot of scenarios. Respect what does not belong to you. So you might be, and I've encountered people like this. This is one that I do personally believe in, is I should respect property that is not mine. I should get permission to use property that isn't mine. But I have seen people who this is not a principle of theirs, and they walk into someone's house and they say, you know what? I really like that book. I'm going to just borrow that book. I'll give it back eventually. Now, for some folks, for them, they might feel very at home. I feel very comfortable. We're friends. What's mine is yours. And I would do the same for you. You're welcome to anything in my house. I'm willing to share. But for me, that feels wrong. But is it absolute wrong? No, this is where it gets fuzzy, because for some people that might feel wrong, for other people that might feel totally fine. This is where it gets kind of weird. Nothing is very black and white, as you'll know. Nothing is very like absolutely yes and absolutely wrong. Like there are very few things in the world are black and white. Mind your business. Don't be, I don't want to hear gossip. I don't like gossip. That could be somebody's thing. Keep your promises, be loyal, be faithful, be dependable. Keep your promises. And you guys are welcome to enter into the chat whatever you want, whenever you want, by the way. If there's any kind of thought or anything, we're not going to do video, but like do put it in the chat if you have thoughts. Make every effort to include people. So that might be somebody's principle, is like, we need to make sure everybody feels invited, everybody feels included. I don't want anybody to feel left out. People are fundamentally good, or people are fundamentally selfish. That could drive a lot of principles, right? If you believe that most people are good, then you might feel very trusting of others. You might feel like, we're all working together and everybody's got a shared purpose. Or if you feel like most people are bad, that could drive your decisions. I'm not going out after dark, or I'm not going to that place because I'm afraid people are going to do this and this. Are either one of those good or bad, or right or wrong? I mean, it's really just how you look at it, right? Violence is never the answer. People are very anti-violence. That could be a principle. Every life is sacred. You might believe that life is sacred. You might believe in karma, that whatever you put out in the universe is going to come back to you. That could be a principle. It's like, I don't make decisions because I believe that what energy I put out in the universe is going to come back to me. Don't take what isn't yours. strive to be kind always obey the law. That's like a respect authority. The laws are there for a reason. These are not, I'm saying, what you need to have. If I'm missing one or one that you think of, again, go ahead and put it in the chat. Does everyone have the same ethics principles? No. And there are things that shape that, right? What are some things that help to influence what and how people believe? What are things that help to shape people's principles? I'll go ahead and do the biggest, easiest one. People's upbringing. So your parents, your family, what they teach you majorly influences what you believe. Now, when you start to unpack what you're thinking, you may find as you grow up that you don't agree with everything that your parents have taught you. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You might agree with everything that they've taught you, but it's very normal and natural to look at the things you've been taught as a kid and be like, do I still believe that's true? I think it's a good thing with curiosity to look at that stuff. What else might shape what you believe? So we said it could be your upbringing, also your experiences. Let's say, as an example, you felt very left out. When you were a kid, maybe you didn't have a lot of friends, you were very lonely, there were a lot of cliques in the school that you were at, and that might inform, like, everybody needs to be included, because I wasn't included when I was a kid, and I know how that feels, so I want to make sure everybody feels included. School, yep, so what you're taught in school, the kind of culture of the school, the climate, like how people interact with each other. There could be life experiences that inform what you think. It could also be that you learn about a certain historical figure or a famous person and the way they live their life. You like that, you want to emulate that. That could also inform that. These sound great, but they get messy. Okay, so maybe you like, I believe this is one of my core principles. So let's take a look. Let's pretend that one of your principles is always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. So maybe you never cheat. Maybe you hand out opinions when you're asked. If people say, what do you think about this? And you're like, I think that's dumb. You feel like you need to say exactly what you think. Fess up when you mess up. You'll tell the truth if you did something wrong, or you'll own it if you screw up. But what about when somebody's feelings are at stake? Like if somebody, a best friend of yours who's going through a really hard time, gets a haircut and they say, what do you think about my haircut? That's where it gets messy, because for some people, they'll be like, oh, well, that's still part of telling the truth. I'll just say, I don't like your haircut. Your hair looks horrible. Or are you willing to bend your principle to protect their feelings? Interesting, right? I've run into this myself. This is something I've had to deal with, where it's like, I want to tell the truth always, but then I run into a scenario where it's like, telling the truth right now all the way, like completely telling the truth, may not actually be in my or this other person's best interest, so that's where it gets tricky. What about keeping secrets or being trustworthy? Here, so maybe you're the person who never spills the tea. You're going to keep secrets to your grave. You're never going to spill tea. But what if a friend is really struggling and maybe they're engaging in self-destructive behavior and they swore you to secrecy? I see this a lot with teens, where their friend is struggling, and we're just going to say it, we're getting into real conversation. Their friend is struggling with thoughts of suicide. And they feel like in order to be a good friend, they have to keep that a secret, because maybe they're saying, I'm struggling with thoughts of suicide, please don't tell anyone. And then as a good friend, they feel like they have to keep that to themselves. But it starts to kind of eat at you a little bit because you're worried about your friend, you care about your friend. Are you willing in that moment to break your principle a little bit and go tell someone to get them help? I'm not saying, actually, I am saying that's one you probably should do, because we want to take care of our friends. We want to make sure your friend gets the help that they need. But it can feel like a betrayal for people by saying, for a lot of teens, loyalty looks like secret keeping, when loyalty really is caring for the person and standing by them. And that might mean that you tell even something they've told you not to tell. Like, I'm currently, addicted to alcohol and I'm drinking every night to go to sleep. Maybe that's some of your friends saying, I'm breaking into my parents' liquor cabinet and I'm drinking myself to sleep every night because I can't go to sleep anymore. And they're like, please don't tell anyone. And you're like, okay, except that's really not good. And I don't want you to get sick. And so, and you know what, what's the risk? You might lose that friendship. You go and you say, you know what, I got to tell somebody. So maybe you tell the school counselor, and school counselor gets their parents involved, and a big to do happens. And they know that it's you that told, because you're the only person that knows. So now you might have lost a friendship. It gets messy, y'all. Your whole thing is like, I want to keep secrets. What's the problem if you do keep that secret? Maybe that person gets hurt. They get alcohol poisoning one day. It could flip the script later too, and they could come out of that time and be like, I told you I was struggling with this. I struggled with it for years and you never helped me. You kept the secret, but you didn't get me help. I wish you had told someone. I was not in a place to do it. So it could be that they get mad at you for the opposite later on. It's tricky, y'all. It's very, very tricky. This is ethics. Okay, here comes some hot takes for you. All right. This is what I need you to take away from this. If you take nothing else away from this, this is what I need you to take away from this. It's okay to still be working on what your code of ethics is for yourself. In fact, right now, you're probably reshaping it. You're probably thinking, this is the stuff I learned as a kid. Here's what I'm learning from lived experience as a person. Not all of the time does it match up. That's okay. You're still figuring it out. I'm still figuring mine out. All I ask is that you have one. You should probably have a moral code, a code of ethics that you live by, things that inform what you believe. But it's okay for those to change. It's okay to still be working on it. It may not be the same as everyone else's. Everyone else may be like, I keep secrets to the grave. And you're like, I keep secrets until it affects someone negatively. It's okay if your code of ethics changes as you learn, as you grow. It's okay. It's okay. It's also okay to hold more than one thing at once. What do I mean by that? To hold more than one thing at once? It means it's okay to have things that don't like fit both at the same time to be happening both at the same time. Like it's okay to have things that are in conflict with each other, both living in your brain at one time. Example, maybe you believe that all life is sacred. Every living being deserves to live, but you also eat meat. That can seem like it goes against. Ooh, interesting. I would love to hear. So two moral compasses. I would love to hear you explain more about that. Interesting. Okay. So let's say you believe all life is sacred, but you also eat meat. And that might be kind of a thing for you. You might be like, I love animals, I love people, but I'm eating meat and that feels weird to me. But I also am not ready to be a vegetarian. That's okay. It's okay to have those things in conflict. It's all right. Yup. Here's another one. Violence is never the answer, but some wars are necessary. I'm not saying these things are absolutely true, but that could be something that you hold inside. You're like, I don't like violence. I also believe we have to go to war sometimes. And those things are opposites, right? It's okay to hold both at once. Here's another one. People are fundamentally good, but some people might commit crimes they can't forgive. You believe people are good, but then some people do things that are heinous and horrible, and you can't forgive, and you think they're bad, and maybe they need to be punished for that. That's something that you might have an issue with, right? And that's okay to have both. It's okay. This is called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive is a big word, big two words. Basically just means like brain, like when you have dissonance in music, because I'm a music person, right? When you're playing something dissonant in music, it means you're playing notes that don't sound good together. They're not really supposed to be next to each other. And they're usually next to each other. They're not supposed to be played together at the same time. It's like, that's called dissonance in music. This is like in your brain, like things that aren't really supposed to be together are together in your brain at the same time. That's okay. We need to sit with our cognitive dissonance and be okay with it. It's all right to hold both. It's okay to love someone in your life, in your family, and also feel like you don't need to spend time with them anymore. This will happen as you get to be an adult. You'll have people in your life that you're like, I love this person, I care about them, I wish them well, I can't be around them anymore. But I love them, but I can't be around them. But I want the best for them, but they're not good for my mental health. Whatever it is, it's okay to hold different things at the same time. I wish so much somebody had told me this when I was growing up, because I felt like we had to pick a lane, right? You either don't believe in violence or you love war. No, you can have both. There are exceptions to rules. This is that gray area thing. And when you're a teenager, it's very easy to get caught up in, well, things are this or they're this. That's a very easy way of understanding the world, but that's not the way the world works, right? It's just not. That's not the way the world works. All life is sacred, or life is expendable. No, no. And things are gray. The gray is between the black and the white. Things are messy, and it's okay. What I'm asking you to do is think about what principles you have. What are the principles that you care about? And let those start to inform your decisions. Let that be what guides you in these gray area times so that you can make better decisions. Moving on, I'm gonna give you some scenarios, and these don't really have great like do this or do this. They do this a lot in school. Like when they do the anti-drug stuff, they'll be like, you're at a party and people are saying, come on, smoke this cigarette. What do you say? Obviously, the answer they want is, I just say no. Rarely in life is something that cut or dry, like cut and dry. Rarely in life are you going to have an issue where it's that easy to make a decision. Most of the time, you're going to have things that are in conflict. Example, let's use that same thing I just said. You're at a party and somebody offers you a cigarette. Maybe you're like, I don't think drugs are good. I will not do drugs. That's one principle you have in your head. But also you're like, I want to fit in. A principle of mine is to belong. And you feel like if you say no, you're not going to belong anymore. You're not going to have your friends anymore. That becomes a lot trickier because now you're like, well, oh, you know, it's not as easy as people like to think. So here's a scenario. Suni has very strict parents. They expect straight A's on every grade. One time when Suni brought home a B, they punished her severely. Now she's at school and the teacher has announced there's pop quiz. I hate pop quizzes. Anybody else hate the pop? Y'all have pop quizzes? They're the worst, okay? Hate them. Suni was already feeling unwell that day. She's not feeling great that day, okay? Her brain was a little foggy. You know, when you're like feeling like you're getting sick and you can't really think straight. Ugh, this is where Suni is right now. Now, there is no way that she can think through a pop quiz and make an A. Her brain's not working. She's not feeling good. She probably should have stayed home, but she's at school, probably because she feels like she has to be, right? To her right is her best friend who's already working hard on answering questions. What are her options? What ethics or principles are in place? So again, hello to everyone who just joined us. We're talking about ethics today, and principles, and how very few things in life are very easy to decide, like say yes or just say no to drugs. Like things are really, really gray and messy. And you need to think about what your ethical principles are. So here's Suni. Suni is taking a pop quiz. Suni doesn't feel great that day, but the teacher just busted out a pop quiz. And Suni knows she's not making an A. But Suni's parents are really, really strict. And the one time she ever brought home a B, they punished her really severely. And now she's sitting with this pop quiz. She doesn't feel good. She's got brain fog. And she's like, what do I do? Now, right here next to her is her best friend who is taking the quiz. The quiz is kind of like right there, right? So Suni could, in this scenario, really easily just copy the answers and probably just get, you know, skip by on what she already knows, but also like just copy answers from her friend. It would be very easy in this scenario to be like, she should not cheat. Cheating is bad. So one of the principles, if that's what you think, could be always tell the truth. Be honest. If you're striving to be an honest person, you're probably not going to cheat. Except one of Suni's principles could also be, I need to please my parents above everything else. So now these principles are in conflict. Do I strive to be honest and just, you know, take the L right now? Or do I, at all costs, try to keep my parents happy with me? That's an important principle, is to please my parents. It's not easy to make these decisions. Her principles inside of her are in conflict. Honesty versus pleasing my parents. What do you do? I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that a lot, yeah. So John says it depends on how severely they punish me. So it's for some people, they're like, I don't care, go ahead and punish me, no big deal. For some parents, they'd be like, good, I'm glad you cheated. You need to be making good grades. For other parents, they'd be like, how dare you cheat? That's not okay. So it's hard, y'all. It's hard. There's not a lot of things in life. I'll tell you this as an adult. There's not a lot of things in life that are that easy to decide. All right. I will also tell you, I've been in this position before. I have sat there and been like, what matters more to me? Being honest or making a good grade? That's hard. That's hard. Sometimes I chose not to cheat. Other times, I'll be honest, I did, because to me, it was more important to please my mom. Specifically, I wanted to make good grades for her. So these principles were in conflict. I'm not here to tell you that there's absolutely one way to do this. You just need to work out what are the principles that you have. If one of the principles for you is I need to be honest about everything else, you probably shouldn't cheat in this scenario. I'm also not telling you to cheat at school. Please don't actually do that. But I can understand ethically why somebody might have a conflict if a lot is writing on their grades, right? Let's go to another scenario. Scenario 2, Valerie is an avid athlete and she plays for several of the school's teams. Her coach is a new teacher. He's a young guy. He's fresh out of college. He's lots of fun. Okay. You know, these young teachers, they're really fun. They're not burnt out yet. He makes the practices motivating, really fun. He loves to playfully tease Val and her friends, and she likes being on the team. One night, she gets a notification that her teacher has requested to be her friend on social media. For some reason, that kind of makes her feel uneasy. What principles are at play here, and what are her options? Am I here to tell you that she should reject his notification? I'm not. I'll tell you what I would do, but that's because my principles are at play here. What principles are at play here? Well, the principle of, I have a friendship with this teacher, not just a teacher, but I feel like this teacher is a friend of mine. I want to stay a friend. This is a way that we can connect. Connection could be the principle. I need to connect with people. I want to, everybody else is friends with them. I should just be friends with them, right? But then why might she feel uneasy? Well, maybe it's because this is an adult and she's not, and he's a dude, and guys on social media may in the past, that's like a whole nother dimension of a relationship, is to start being friends on social media. Am I saying that something bad's going to happen if she, accepts his friend request? No, could be nothing happens, right? Could be totally fine. I use my social media to tell you about practices and everything's great. But also could be bad, right? Things could get a little inappropriate, maybe. I'm not saying they will. That's what makes this hard. We don't know. But you're going to be faced with situations like this where you're like, ugh, what do I need to do here? And you need to think about that. You need to think about, what are the principles? What are the risks? What are the implications? Is this worth it? Is it not? Is it worth keeping a good relationship with my coach? Or is it worth potentially something bad happening? Direct messages that go the wrong direction. And now I have a problem on my hands. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying you need to think about, what are your principles inside that are going to guide this? It's tricky. Again, if y'all have thoughts, please put them in the chat. I'm happy to do that. Scenario 3. Jake and Dante are watching their 2 little cousins tonight. Okay, so these are brothers, and they're watching their 2 little cousins tonight while the mom and the aunt are at a women's retreat. Jake suggests they go sneak out for a night swim at the neighbor's pool after midnight. The neighbors are on vacation, and the cousins are really hard sleepers. Dante feels a little bit uneasy about this. So I will go ahead and tell you, this is based on a real scenario. I did not do this, but I know about a situation where this exact thing happened. So don't even sit here and if you look at my scenarios, you're like, that would never happen. False. This happened actually recently, and I heard about it. So I'm using, obviously not their real names, but I know that this occurred just through the grapevine. I know this occurred. Not with anybody who works here or any kids here, just other realm of my life. I know that this occurred. This very exact thing. Am I telling you exactly what to do in this situation? No. Ooh. If the cousins were asleep, do you mean like you would be asleep as well? Like, I would probably be asleep. My principle is sleep. But just think about it. Like, yeah, right. It's normal and natural as teenagers to want to engage in risk-taking behavior. Sneaking out and going to swim in the neighbor's pool is risky, right? But you guys in your brain, you like reward you, and that feels like a reward. If you get away with it, that feels really, really fun. It feels really, really good. Problem though, and I am gonna pull out my parent card here in a second, but the issue with this, let's talk about Dante, because he's feeling 2 different things. Maybe he's excited about the prospect, like, yeah, that'd be really fun. We go swim overnight swim, kids sleep anyways, no big deal. What are the chances something happens? Probably very little. Kids will probably sleep. They'll go in the pool. Ha ha ha, he. We all have a good time. We go back, we go home, go to sleep. Nobody knows. Now me and my brother have had this really cool moment. We did this cool secret thing. It was awesome. What are the chances something else happens? Maybe you go to the pool and somebody, heaven forbid, has an issue in the pool and they're struggling swimming. something, and that happens. Like even avid swimmers will occasionally have a moment where it's like, they, get disoriented in the pool and something goes down, or someone gets stung by a bee in the middle of the night, whatever. Or they get bit by a snake and now they need medical attention and no one knows where you are. Or something happens with little cousins. Maybe a little cousin, wakes up, doesn't know where anybody is, starts wandering through the house, trips and falls down the steps, breaks an arm, breaks a leg. I know that sounds horrible, but this is the risk here. It's not just, ooh, this is so fun. It's also like, oh, now I know what I would do in the situation. That's because I'm a parent of 2 small children. So for me, it's like, if I tell you to watch my children, I want you to watch my children. But I understand that as a teenager, you're looking at the scenario, you're like, well, probably things are fine. This will be really fun. What are your principles at work here? The principle of connection with my brother. Fun. I enjoy fun. I want to pursue fun in my life. That's important to me. Okay, I get that. But then the other one is, I need to keep my cousins safe. This feels like an intrusion on my neighbor's property. That kind of feels weird to me. That's the other thing, is like your neighbors might have motion sensors and then you get, the cops called on you because they think someone's breaking into the house. There's a lot of risk here too, but it's not that easy. Again, this is based on a real scenario. This is based on a real scenario. And what happened in the scenario was the people went off and did this, left the children they were in charge of, went in for a swim, came back and went to sleep, and nothing happened. The kids were fine. They were fine. But then they started bragging about it to their friends. And then word got around and they got in huge trouble. So that's the issue too. It's like, maybe nothing goes wrong, but then people find out about it later. So it's all about your principles. You got to decide what's important to you, and then you got to act on that. And you got to sit there and think, yeah, this might be really fun, but what is the chance that something could go really wrong? Like, is it worth it? So I like this one. This one's, you are part of a committee of students that's putting on a talent show for the school. So imagine you're on a committee. Just play pretend with me for a second, okay? You're at school. You're on this group committee, whatever. You're going to help put on a talent show. Wouldn't that be great? If we lived in a non-COVID world, we could all just sing and have a talent show. Like, oh, that would be nice. You and 2 other friends are going to be judges for the talent show, okay? Any student in the whole school is allowed to enter for a chance to win $1,000. If the kid wins, they get $1,000, and you guys are going to be the judges. A girl named Lacey has entered the talent show. Kid at the school named Lacey. She is known all over town. She's in a lot of plays and performances. Okay, so Lacey is in the music scene locally. She's all over the place. This is a kid who's done music stuff, who's performed before. One day after school, during a talent show rehearsal, Lacey's mom, Brooke, approaches you with a small envelope. Interesting. Wonder what that is. She quickly and pleasantly remarks that she's looking forward to the talent show and hopes that you will make the right choice. After she walks away, you open the envelope and you see a gift certificate to her local store, which sells high-end clothes. And the gift certificate is worth $100. So this is also based off of a ethics scenario that I found online. I just tweaked it to make it more relevant to you guys. But I will say this kind of stuff does happen. Maybe not exactly like this, but that happens. Is any kind of alarm bell going off? Yeah, John's like, no, it's a bribe. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Brooke's mom is a stage mom, I guess, and really wants Lacey to win, and has said, hey, hope you make the right choice, la la la. She didn't come up to you and say, you better vote for my kid. She didn't come up to you and say, I'm gonna, tell everybody bad things about you all over town if you don't make my kid. She did it very smooth, right? Very smooth. This stuff happens, especially in business. Yeah, but that's hard, right? Because now you're in a very tough position. You either have to, and especially as a teenager, you guys, it's hard to be a teen because like going up against adults is really difficult. And in this scenario, you would have to rat out an adult, and people are going to, by default, take the word of the adult over a kid. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that's right. It's just, that's the way it would be. But so here's the thing, maybe you take the bribe and you vote the kid and nobody's the wiser and everything's fine. And now you get clothes. Cool. What's your principle of play there? If it's, I want to make everybody happy, one of your guiding principles in life is I need to make all people happy all the time, which, but maybe that's a principle of yours, then maybe you do it. Or I don't want to rock the boat. Okay, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm going to mind my business. I'll take the bribe. Maybe I'll take the bribe, but I won't use it. Or, do I go and I talk to somebody about this? Maybe I talk to the principal and say, I'm uncomfortable. This lady came up to me. She gave me this. And, but now I'm causing a big stink and the lady hates my guts. So this stuff is hard, y'all. It's hard. Ethics are hard, but you need to figure out what it is that guides your principles. I'm going to go back since we had folks join us. So again, just to recap, people have studied ethics for forever. There are whole courses in college about ethics and philosophy and like how people should make decisions in their life. There's not a cut and dried thing. Again, Jiminy Cricket is not going to pop out and say, this is what you should do. Sometimes we know exactly what we should do. We feel it like, oh, that makes me feel strange. I'm not going to do that. Other times it's not that easy. You're like, well, if I do this, then this happens. But if I do this, then this happens. And neither one of them are good, So it's hard. It's hard, y'all. Here are some examples of principles you could have. John already heard this. So John, I want you to think about if I'm missing any of them. So principles are, you could like one of your principles would be, I'm going to always tell the truth no matter what. Another principle could be, I'm going to mind my business. I'm not going to get in people's stuff. I'm not going to gossip. Another one could be, every life is sacred. And that's going to inform the decisions you make. If you believe this, I heard a great podcast the other day that's like, people get really bent out of shape about laws. Like, I believe that education should be free, or I believe that a big one is healthcare. People should not have to pay to go to the hospital. I'm not saying that from my perspective necessarily. I'm just saying this is something that people say. Another one could be, I believe in protecting the earth. And if you get caught up in a law, like let's say people are like, I think we should tax oil companies. Well, you need to realize where that's coming from. Why do I want people to have higher taxes on oil companies? That's your policy. That's your law. But your principle could be, because I care about the earth. So you need to think about, like, if you believe something, why do you believe it? If you believe that you want to be a vegetarian, okay, so I use this example later. You want to be a vegetarian. Why? Because my principle is every life is sacred. I want to protect animals. I care about animals. These are examples. They're going to inform your decisions. Sleep. So I'll take that and I'll say, maybe one of your principles is, I need to stay healthy. I want to protect my body. And so your decisions that you make are going to be based on that. So your friends are like, hey, it's 11:30 at night. We're going to the club. Okay, let's go to the club. I know you guys are not going to the club right now, but just one day this is going to happen where your friends are like, let's go to the club. And you're like, I'm not going to the club. I feel good, but I'm not going to the club. Why? Well, you made that decision based on a principle, which is, I want to do what's right by my body, and I know my body needs sleep. Or maybe one of your principles is connection, fun. I want to have fun at all costs. And so you go out. I'm not, nothing in life is really black and white. There are a few things, a few absolutes, but most stuff is very fuzzy. Okay. Very fuzzy. Yes. Thinking more. Laziness, LOL. Expend as little energy as possible. Maybe that's one of your principles. I will say that people are, some of the best inventions came from folks who were lazy, quote unquote, because they were like, why am I working harder? I'm going to work smarter, So I do see that. I don't know if that's a principle so much as it's just like a way of life, but there can be good things that come from that. Our principles can be in conflict with each other. So example, here we go. Come here. All life is sacred, but you eat meat. Can you have both? Yes, it's okay to have both. It's okay for your things to be in conflict. Maybe you think violence is never the answer. That's a principle I have that's going to inform my decisions. I'm never going to hit somebody. I'm never going to condone this. I'm never going to whatever. Violence is not the answer. But some wars are necessary. Maybe you think those things. Can you have both in your head? Yes, you can. People are fundamentally good. Maybe you believe that. Everybody's good. Most people are good. But some people commit crimes that you can't forgive. Can you have both? Yes. People are going to try to box you in. You have to, well, you believe this, but you said this, but then you did this. You can't believe this and this. Yes, you can. It's okay. We are complicated. It's all right to have both at the same time. You know what I'm saying? It's called cognitive dissonance. I talked about that earlier. So anybody have thoughts, ethical things, ethical conflicts, Ethical conflicts is basically where you're in a scenario and you're like, oh, do I do that or do I not? When you go for a job, they might tell you, these are our code of ethics. That basically says, not your code of ethics. When you come to work here, you have to abide by these things. So I'm thinking about my own job. One of the code of ethics I had to sign was confidentiality, which basically means protect people's information, keep things secret that have to stay secret. And so I signed. So maybe I love spilling the tea in my own life, but I know that my company, our code of ethics says I have to keep things confidential. And so I signed a paper, and that means I do. Another code of ethics is, oh my gosh, I forgot I'm supposed to have these memorized. It's actually not my company either. It's like a certification that I got. I can't remember. But I know confidentiality is one. Another one I think is cultural diversity, that makes sure that, you know, everybody feels included, that we're making things culturally competent. So that means I have to strive to make sure that cultures are respected, that people who come from different backgrounds can feel welcome and feel treated fairly and feel treated equally. So that's another thing. Ethics is also like, don't show up to work drunk. Don't show up to work and steal all the stuff. Don't show up to work and get mad and then, you know, destroy a bunch of property. You know, that but there are people where I've had to do that when I've applied for jobs. They make you answer like an ethics questionnaire where they'll be like, is it okay to take something from your business? You know, is it okay to take money out of the cash register? People are like, no. They're like, is it okay to take home a stapler because you need a stapler at your house? You're like, no, maybe. Like, that's the stuff that gets weird. Is it okay to cheat on a test? Maybe you say no. Is it okay to cheat ever? You're like, no. But then it's like, is it okay to cheat on a tiny homework thing that doesn't matter? And then you're like, well, yes, maybe. It depends. Like, things get weird. So anyway, ethics are hard. All you need to do is start thinking about what your code of ethics is that you live by. What is your moral compass? Do you have one? Hopefully you do. What informed it? Maybe your life experiences up to this point. Is it okay to change it? Yes. Yes. It doesn't have to be the same as everybody else's too, but start thinking about what your principles are that you care about. It could be some of these over here. Everyone should be treated fairly. Keep your promises. Violence is not the answer. Karma, you know, I'm not saying believe these. This is just examples. But think about, what are the principles that guide your decisions? And how can we make sure that the way that we decide things is beneficial to both you and others? Because you don't want a principle to be like, trample the weak, hurdle the dead, you know, like do whatever to benefit myself at all costs. It's not a great way of living. That could be a principle of yours, but that could hurt other people, right? We don't want that. We want to live in a way that's gracious to ourselves and gracious to others. And from there, you know, wiggle room. So questions, comments, concerns. I know that was kind of higher level, right? Higher level stuff, but I think it's very interesting. I think it's something, hopefully it gives you some brain stuff to think about. So anything. Ethics. I love ethics. Love ethics. People will say things are unethical. It means like that's not correct. That's not a good way of doing things. The way people are treated sometimes, like, you know, people who are put in prisons, and if they're treated poorly or cruelly, people will say that's unethical. And that basically means, like, on a societal level, we're supposed to treat each other with dignity and respect. And then if someone's not treated with dignity and respect, then that's unethical, right? So anyway, now when you hear that word, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. Anything else, folks? Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it very much. Very, very much. Rainbow House, glad you guys are here. John, glad you guys are here. Glad you guys, you're multiple people now, John. Glad you are here. It's been a joy and a pleasure. So we will be back at it on Friday. Well, we're having escape room tomorrow night at 8:00. And it's a murder mystery escape room. So you're having to prove yourself innocent because you're charged with a murder. So that's going to be really fun to do kind of a murder mystery escape room. And then Friday, we'll be streaming from the clubhouse again. It'll be me and Kelton. So we'll have like a very chill kind of tech streaming that will happen about 4:30. And then, about 3:50, sorry. And then at 4:30, it'll be Common Sense with me. We're talking about self-image. Important to have good self-image. So that's all I've got. Last chance, folks, for any kind of comments. I want to make sure I hear them. I don't want to just shut us down and not have everybody have a chance to say what they need to say. If you'll have questions, you want me to review something. Bad under pressure, so I would not do good. Ah, you'll do fine. You'll do fine. You'll do fine. Anybody? Questions, comments, concerns, put critiques in the suggestion box. There's not a suggestion box. All right, well, if that's it, then thanks, guys, and I hope I see y'all tomorrow. See you later.